Let's go back to Ružomberok for a moment more. Unfortunately, not to have a nice cold beer in Černý Kamień. We are going to talk here about a very important person for the Slovak state in the 20th century. It is time to get deeper into the topic of one Andrej Hlinka. But actually, in order to start his story, it's not Ružomberok itself. It's Černova. Now you have the village 100 years ago. Today, it is officially not a village anymore. It is officially a district of Ružomberok itself. And although administratively it may be part of a city, it kinda still retains a good old school village feel from 100 years ago. So we are starting the story of Andrej Hlinka here because this is his birthplace. And actually, the house where he was born and lived is still there. It is today a little museum. Not the most popular one. At the door you will find a piece of paper with the name of the man who can actually open the door and the phone number. But he did come, he opened the door, very little, 5-10 minutes, and we are out. But officially, we went through. So, leaving the place, let me tell you a bit more about the man. So he was born in 1864 in a poor family of farmers, workers with 8 siblings actually. So definitely not the wealthiest people around. But he did have education from the ground up. And then when he's a teenager, he's in Ružomberok in a Catholic school. So 2 things about it. It is time of Magyarization. So Hungarian policy of education only in Hungarian, but he gets proper Slovak education, as Ružomberok was actually a bit of a particular place on the map of the time. But also he became a priest under the influence of a Catholic school after all. And then he is, so to speak, touring the region. He is sent to many different places. Wherever he goes, he becomes famous as a person who's very active. For example, he was fighting against alcoholism and other plagues of the time. So he is growing in fame, but not only as a priest, also as a politician. He started first, ironically, as a true Slovak in a Catholic Hungarian political party, because they were saying that yes, maybe some autonomy for the other ethnicities. In the end, after several years, that did not work out. He left. But his fame grew so much that one day people in Ružomberok actually asked him to come and become the parish priest. So he did in late 1904. Now, the most important thing for us right now, he asked the villagers of his Černova to start raising money for a new church. 1906, there are elections, and he supports a Slovak nationalist. The bishop of the time did not like it one little bit, as he felt he is Hungarian. So he suspended Hlinka. Also, they started things against him that he frauded money or something. Anyway, actually, Hlinka ended up in jail for a number of months. But then something extremely important happens. Now, we walked down the street for a reason. The place where we are at the very moment is the red dot on the photo. Now, 1907, in October, the bishop sent 2 Hungarian priests to open the church. But the people of Černova were angry. They wanted Hlinka. Hlinka, in the end, was the person who actually started the issue of building the church. The bishop does not want to send Hlinka. He sent the Hungarian priests. So the people blocked the way in the place where we were a moment ago. And we don't know exactly what happened, but the 15 soldiers that were guarding the 2 priests panicked and started shooting. They, in the end, killed 15 people and wounded around 50. It became known as the Černova massacre, and for the Slovaks that was the high point of Magyarization. But maybe even more important is the fact that it left the Slovak-Hungarian circles and the news reached the West. It was a big deal because Hungary actually had good PR, and many Westerners considered Hungary the liberal brother of conservative Austria in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And it turns out that Hungarian soldiers are shooting Slovaks. So there was a big deal, and there were actually publications. One of them included Hlinka on the cover. So he became a poster boy for the Slovak fight against Magyarization. The most famous supporter of the Slovak cause was one Björnsson, a Nobel Prize winner, who actually gained even a street in Černova. The tragedy itself is actually still a bit of an issue till the very day, and there are no actual 100% sure accounts, and one of the issues raised today is that most of the soldiers who shot were actually Slovaks themselves. Some of them couldn't even speak Hungarian, so there are people saying, but it was Slovaks against Slovaks. Well, what's important here is the fact that we are talking about more than 100 years ago, and it's still, national identity is still on the way, so to speak. So there are people who don't consider themselves Slovak simply because they speak the language. They have identity through what they wear. Wearing Hungarian uniforms, those people were shooting as Hungarians. It is very important to have that detail in mind. And in the end, people got what they wanted. Hlinka had to spend a couple of years in jail, but 1910 he's here and he opens the church officially with hundreds of people around him. And as much as it was obviously an important thing for the people here, for Hlinka it was the milestone in his political career. He actually was a member of a Slovak National Party. He left and soon started his own, the Common People's Slovak Party. And here in the cemetery in the 30s also they created a big monument to how they started being called officially the Černova Martyrs. And this is a very interesting place also for me for another reason. The first two episodes were full of folk culture, and that's the trick. We often believe that history is made by intellectuals and generals and politicians. Not only, the so-called common folk can influence history as well. And here's a great example. Several hundred of the common folk, simply because they wanted their rights upheld and did not give up, they also did change the course of history. And I have a special place in my heart for places and stories like that. Well, Hlinka also changes the course of history. His are the words that 1,000 years of marriage with the Hungarians have failed and it's time for a divorce. So October 1918, he's in Martin signing the Martin Declaration. He is a member of the reinstated Matica, and now we moved in time and space. Welcome to Žilina. We're going to walk around this town, the main square and the surrounding streets for a moment. I'm going to tell you soon why we are here. There's one particular reason. But let's get back to Hlinka. Now, you already know he's important when it comes to the Hungarian times. He's no less important later. Best example, in the middle of the 20s, the party that he founded, the Popular Party, actually gets his name officially. So obviously an important person for the party, but not only for Slovakia as such, as his party is the main political power, pretty much winning 1/3 of the votes every elections. So here is an important issue. Now, Hlinka did want Slovakia to join the new Czechoslovak state, but he wanted it according to particular rules. Now, if you're standing, let's sit tight and concentrate. It's going to be a bit difficult now. So, late May 1918 in Pittsburgh, a group of Slovak and Czech immigrants decided to sign a Pittsburgh Agreement, in which they decided they are going to lobby for an independent Czechoslovak state. Important bit. They wanted a hyphen between the two to show that there is going to be a federal state of two equal nations. For example, there was supposed to be an independent Slovak Diet. So then we have the declaration of Martin from late October. We talked about it already. And it's pretty much according to what Pittsburgh said. Now here's the twist. 2 days before Martin, in Prague, they had done the same. There was a declaration of Czechoslovak independence with some Slovaks involved, but according to different rules. For example, kind of a symbol, no hyphen. Czechoslovakia is one word and Czecho is first. So that was pretty much the idea. It is going to be one state ruled from Prague. Now, there was a Slovak who came from Prague to Martin when he read what they did, and it did not agree with the Prague one, supposedly with a number of people in secret, then redrafted the original document. So what was kinda later known as the Martin Declaration isn't the original one. Supposedly the original one was closer to Pittsburgh. Anyway, are you lost already? Don't worry. The important bit is, since the middle of the 20s, Hlinka and many Slovaks actually are disappointed by what's going on, because they thought they're gonna have, pretty much independence, as in they are going to be one of two equal parts in the same state, and many felt like nothing really changed since the Hungarian times. That they're pretty much treated by the Czechs like the Hungarians treated them before. Disappointment, right? So Hlinka played on those sentiments, and from what I read, actually they were not exactly invented. Supposedly, that was actually an issue, that Prague did centralize the government. They were sending Czechs here and to take over, for example, administration, and treated pretty much Slovakia like backwater. True or not, what we know for sure is that the 30s is not a good time for democracy. Rise of people like Hitler, for example, and many of authoritarian minds, even living in democratic states, they were thinking, well, maybe democracy is bankrupt. What shall we do about it? Well, one of those people is Hlinka. I think you understand, if the guy already if the guy already named his own party with his proper name, he definitely thought maybe it's time to raise the iron fist. So let me give you a quote I found on Slovak Wikipedia. And by the way, the author, I think he's kind of sympathetic to Hlinka. Actually, there's a quote, middle of the 30s. I am the Slovak Hitler, and as Hitler brought order to Germany, I will bring order to Slovakia. Well, from the modern point of view, that's a bit of a strong statement, right? Now, sorry for the sudden freeze on my face, but after dropping such a bomb, I do have to also comment that he also did criticize Hitler quite a lot, especially for Hitler's anti-Christian stance. So if you want to compare Hlinka to somebody of the 30s, it's better to compare him to Portuguese Salazar or Austrian Dollfuss. What's important for us at the very moment is that he wasn't the only one thinking like that, because authoritarian systems started winning. For example, in 1938, there's the Munich Conference, and Czechoslovakia loses plenty of land to Nazi Germany. Such weakness has to be used. So in the Catholic house of Žilina, right after the Munich Conference, the Ludaci, as the members of the Hlinka's Common People's Party were called, they asked all the important members of other parties to come, and on the 6th of October, from the balcony of the building, they officially pronounced the autonomy of Slovakia within the state. The hyphen in Czechoslovakia was back. But it wasn't Hlinka who pronounced it, it was Josef Tiso, Hlinka's right hand for many a year, as Hlinka himself did not live to see the autonomy or even Munich Conference. He died a bit before, in August 1938. Now originally simply buried in the cemetery in Ružomberok, but one of the first things that autonomous Slovakia did, reburied him in his own proper mausoleum in Ružomberok. Actually, he kind of got treatment like Lenin. He got embalmed and was carried around in a glass coffin. More importantly, the cult began, and he became known as the father of the nation. Now, before we go, two more people who were members of the Hlinka's party having issued their hands. About those hands and those two, that's another topic for another day. Back to Ružomberok. Well, he's from here, as in the village when he was born now is a part of the city. So it was decided he should rest here. So what you have in front of you is mausoleum of Andrej Hlinka. And as you can see, the words are here. There's the symbol of the Slovak Republic. It's all great, but there's one detail. everything is closed. Not only closed, it kinda it's falling apart. Some rubble lying around. Kind of weird if this is a mausoleum of a national hero, wouldn't you say? See, here's the problem. The end of the war is coming, and the Red Army is coming. That's sort of thing. Hence, there's a problem. Hlinka was very anti-communist, and the party that he used to run was an ally of Nazi Germany. So, people here were afraid that the Red Army will consider him some kind of enemy of the state, the ideology, what have you, and that his body will be sacked, destroyed. So they hid it. The body was spirited away. People would say that it was in the end reburied in Bratislava, in one of their main cathedrals, main churches. But supposedly, in 1967, there were people in secret, as Hlinka was considered during the whole of communist period an evil, really. So in secret, several people went down to check if the body of Hlinka is actually there. So they found the coffin, but it was empty. The body was gone, and it still is. Till the very day, we don't know what happened to it, we don't know where it is. Actually, I found out a bit of a Da Vinci Code theme, Slovak version if you like. What happened supposedly is, it was taken away by 3 people. So there are only 3 people who know the secret, who know where the body of Hlinka is, as supposedly it still is hidden somewhere. And if one of them dies, passes the secret to another person. So at any given moment, there are 3 people who know where the body is hidden. Sounds very Da Vinci-ish, as in the code. Well, how do we know if it's 3 people? Maybe it's 4. If we don't know who they are, how can we tell how many there are? Anyway, I'm not really interested in those conspiracy theories and so on. What I'm interested in, I would actually like to know what happened to it. And maybe one day we will. So don't be surprised if such kind of weird news, maybe one of those days, you are going to read about. But now I'd like to just share with you one last bit. Let's call it epilogue to the story. So we're back to Žilina, but this time to a different spot, Hlinkove Namestie. And for a bit of an epilogue, I have not been a student or a pupil here in a Slovak school, so I have no idea how it is taught these days. All I can say is, from what I've been reading in the Slovak internet, he's a bit of a controversial person, of course, and the division is roughly along ideological lines. Those who are leaning towards the left or liberals, they tend to criticize him. Those who are conservative, Catholic, they tend to view him as a hero. And I'm pretty sure there are plenty of people who kind of view him not in 0 ones, but in the shades of grey, right? And I definitely cannot have a 100%, let's call it objective opinion. But what I can tell you is, he is a very important guy here, and you're gonna see plenty of names in the names of streets or squares bearing his name. You're gonna have plenty of monuments like the one behind you. So, controversial? Yes. Important? Yes. Now, we've got one important guy and another important topic done. So there's only one last remaining. His legacy, kinda, actually. Second World War and the first official independent Slovak state. But that will have to wait a moment, as you cannot have 2 difficult topics in a row. So let me put it like this. Monty Python would say, and now for something completely different. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.